Hello and welcome to Lamplighter. Today is March 1st. We continue in our daily reading today to go through the laws, the very specific laws that God has for his people, remembering all along the way that God is forming a nation of people. He is forming a theocratic nation that follows only him as their supreme God. He is the rule maker, he is the rule giver, he is the rule enforcer. And all of these laws have a purpose, primarily to make sure that this nation that is being established by God is true to him, is faithful to him, and therefore is unique from all the other neighboring nations. These are a holy people. They are a holy nation unto God because God himself is holy. So in the process of forming this holy nation, God has very specific, detailed laws. Now, in today's reading, we look specifically at civil laws. Civil laws, both then and even now, today, are designed for a specific purpose. They are simply to regulate daily life in a way that is fair for every person and to maintain order. Can you imagine, for example, what life would be like in our communities and even in our states if we had no laws, no civil laws that would keep us organized, that would keep us living orderly with one another, and therefore removing all chaos? These laws serve a very important purpose. Now, there's a little phrase hidden here early in our reading that I want to bring out to you because it has always struck me as something very interesting. The phrase is this, quote, "When a man or woman wrongs another in any way, he or she is unfaithful to the Lord," end quote. When we wrong another person, no matter what that wrong is, we are demonstrating unfaithfulness to God. That's a pretty significant statement. It shows us the importance of learning how to get along with each other and learning how to treat one another with respect. And again, it ties back to those primary summations we've looked at for these laws: love God and love people. Even the Ten Commandments are divided in such a way to show us how to love God and how we should love and get along with people. Now, in this section we're reading today, there's a great number of laws given, laws that cover restitution for loss. If there is some sort of loss, then one pays back the value that was lost, plus usually 1/5 or 20% as sort of an interest rate or a tax, you might say. Sometimes the restitution requires that double be repaid, but there are laws specifically for that restitution. There are laws for how to deal with violations by seduction. There are laws for dealing with injuries and the damages that are caused by those injuries. There are laws dealing with masters and slaves. As a matter of fact, masters are reminded that slaves are only to be kept for 7 years. There's a very interesting section, and I'd like to read it with you. It's on page 270 of our reading today, called the 7-Year Release. If a fellow Hebrew, a man or a woman, sells himself to you and serves you 6 years, in the 7th year, you must let him go free. And when you release him, do not send him away empty-handed. Supply him liberally from your flock, your threshing floor, and your winepress. Give to him as the Lord your God has blessed you. Remember that you were slaves in Egypt, and the Lord your God redeemed you. That is why I give you this command today. But, notice this, if your servant says to you, I do not want to leave you, because he loves you and your family and is well off with you, then here's what you do. Take an awl and push it through his earlobe into the door, and he will become your servant for life. Do the same for your maidservant. Do not consider it a hardship to set your servant free, because his service to you these 6 years has been twice as much as that of a hired hand. And the Lord your God will bless you in everything you do. You see, even a slave has the option of saying, I know that you're supposed to release me after 7 years, but I want to stay with you. You've treated me well. My family and I love you and love being with you. And then we're willing to have our ear pierced with this awl to demonstrate that we've committed ourselves totally to you. Let's take a quick aside. We have the opportunity as servants of God to do the same thing. Even if we're set free of our own free will to go whichever way we want, will we loyally choose to stay faithful to God and say, we give you our lives by our own free will? Pierce my ear, O Lord my God. Take me to your door this day, is a song sometimes that our young people sing. It's a powerful message of giving ourselves totally to the Lord. As we read on, there are laws that indicate that the more generous a person is, the more blessing he should expect to receive. There are laws about making contracts and agreements with one another. There are laws about making oaths and the importance of keeping that oath once it's made. There are laws about relationships and the promises and commitments people make to one another in specific relationships with one another. There are laws about weights and measures, being consistent, using the same weights, treating everyone fairly, not trying to take advantage of anyone. There are laws about inheritance, and even the levirate law comes into play here. What is the levirate law? It's something that we'll read about multiple times throughout the Bible. The levirate law was one that said, if a woman and a man are married and the man dies before they have children, then the man's brother has the responsibility to take his brother's wife as his own and to give her children in his brother's name. That keeps all the inheritance in the family, so to speak. Well, if that brother refuses to fulfill his obligation, maybe he says, I don't want to marry my brother's wife, then he has to appear before the elders at the town gate, make his case before them, and the wife then takes off his sandal, spits in his face, and he is then regarded as the family of the unsandaled. It's an interesting custom, but again, it's a custom designed to keep inheritances within families. Then there's this unusual story told of a man by the name of Zelophehad. Zelophehad has 5 daughters, no sons. So when he dies, there is no son to whom he can pass on the inheritance, and the women are regarded as low forms of society, and so they have no inheritance of their own. So they appeal to Moses, and they say, couldn't we make an exception here? Moses takes the case before God. God agrees that Zelophehad's daughters should receive a part of the inheritance. Then some of the tribes get concerned and they say, wait a minute, if these women marry someone from another tribe, then that inheritance that was belonging to their tribe initially is going to be transferred to another tribe, and then there'll be an imbalance and it won't be fair. And so a law is made that Zelophehad's daughters will receive an inheritance, but if they marry, they must marry within their own tribe. A lot of interesting things happening in today's reading, but again, when we back up and get the big picture, the story is about a holy God forming a holy nation, showing them very specifically how to achieve holiness in the way they interact with Him and in the way they interact with each other. There are rules and regulations put in place, but they're not to squelch people. They're not to punish people necessarily. They are to guide people in a direction that God would like for them to go. And by the way, the same is still true today. Isn't it great to be a lamplighter? His word is a lamp to our feet and a light to our path. I hope you have a blessed day.